Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast, the much-awaited opportunity to watch an OTA of the 2023 Patriots. It came on Wednesday, and watch it we did under perfect crystal skies at Chamber of Commerce Day in Foxborough, Massachusetts. What did we see? We saw plenty. I want you to check NBCSportsBoston.com for the written word and check NBC Sports Boston's Twitter feed and Phil and my Twitter feeds for observations throughout the day. No Phil right now. You can check NBC. You can check Early Edition, Boston Sports Tonight. We'll be there all week long with our impressions. And, of course, the Next Pats podcast. But the thing that stood out most to me today was a reversion to the normal. Mac Jones.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's been normal. I think everything he's done so far has been really good. I think the communication is the most important part, and trust. I think it all starts with that when you're with a new coach, and he's done a great job in controlling the room. I feel like everyone's on the same page. Just got to continue to do it. It's a marathon, not a sprint, so we know that, and he's obviously had great experience in the NFL and at Alabama where I was at, so there's a lot of good stuff that we've talked about, and just looking forward to working with him.
All right, so what we're going to give you today is impressions. There's a lot to dig through from this particular day. Matthew Slater spoke at length about player health and safety and the NFL's hypocrisy in trying to ban kickoffs while also skirting health and safety in other arenas. I'm going to devote a different pod to that and to Bill Belichick talking about the OTA penalties and even a little bit to the Mac Jones, I'm going to settle scores. And that was me putting words in his mouth, getting everybody to shut the F up. All that sound we're going to put into another podcast and get some reactions from you where you can hear what these guys had to say. But what I wanted to give you here in this pod, simply impressions. What did the practice look like? And the thing that stood out the most to me was the crispness and execution and organization of the practice from an offensive side of things. And we contrast that really with, the last three OTAs. We had a 2020 OTA with Cam Newton coming in under Josh McDaniels and Jarrett Stidham. We weren't even allowed to be there. 2021, we saw a rookie Mac Jones competing with Cam Newton. So Josh McDaniels is toggling back and forth between multiple offenses. And then 2022, where you have Mac Jones and the entire offense trying to assimilate into a wide zone rushing attack under a team with no dedicated offensive coordinator, nor play caller, and new offensive line coaching. Last year, it was obvious as you saw the troika of coaches, Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia, and Joe Judge, huddled around the quarterbacks at different junctures, different people taking the play card, different people taking the lead with the play calls, different people in and out of the huddles, that it was a collaboration. I suspended disbelief and said, hey, maybe three brains can be as good as one Josh McDaniels. It turned out not to be the case. So what I've anticipated in this camp, in this OTA session, was it getting back to what it looked like with Josh McDaniels. And it did. It very much did, especially since this was the first OTA in which Mac Jones wasn't a rookie and didn't have competition from someplace else. Actually, he didn't have competition from someplace else last year. He just had disarray. This is the first OTA or offseason since Tom Brady was here that there's not been some kind of tumult. And it looked that way. What did the Patriots work on? Really offensively, mostly mostly passing game. Last year, we saw running game, a ton of it in some of the early OTAs as they tried to get that wide zone stuff installed. Really didn't see any of that today. The stuff we did see in running reps in 11 on 11, 9 on 9, 7 on 7 was straight ahead stuff. Now, remember, no contact allowed out there, so it's really hard to not look good in the passing game. There were some miscommunications and some picks in some of the 7 on 7. Early on, Mac had one downfield and Bailey Zappi had one underneath. Trace McSorley, an added quarterback for depth, not very good. He had a couple of picks today, but generally speaking, things were on target in the short passing game, which was a lot of the concentration today. I don't want to say that's what the offense is going to look like this year, because seeing one May OTA is not enough to draw a conclusion about what the offense is going to look like in August, September, October, November. But really trying to install some of the running back out of the backfield stuff with Ty Montgomery specifically. Some of the shorter stuff with Kendrick Bourne and Tyquan Thornton breaking free on short area passes, and the 2 tight end stuff with Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry. We're all on display. Tyquan Thornton had a real good practice. Tyquan Thornton talked about what he felt was being able to hit the ground running in 2023. I wrote about it before, actually coming right out of the draft. All the rock kicking about the Patriots not selecting a wide receiver anytime in the early portions of the draft. I said, well, I'd be more irritated with the Patriots if I was a Patriots fan if they hadn't spent a second rounder last year on a wide receiver, Tyquan Thornton. I look at 2022 as an apprentice year for him. This is the year that it's important for him to show some of that second round faith the Patriots placed in him. They've done it with a lot of other players, taken in the second round, and that faith has not been rewarded. Can Tyquan Thornton be a guy who does reward the faith the Patriots showed in him? First impression, a good one. Meanwhile, I guess another big story today would be who was not there. And I'm going to roll through some of the names of the guys that you will recognize who were not there. First and foremost, Christian Gonzalez, the rookie first rounder out of Oregon, not in attendance today. Don't have any intel exactly on why. Is that contractual, injury, personal? He was not down on the lower field working out on conditioning or in rehab assignments. So we don't have a read yet on why no Gonzalez. Also, no Juju, no Judon. Trent Brown absent. That is one worth monitoring. We will have another opportunity next week at another OTA to see if Big Trent's out there. No Nick Folk, no Christian Barmore, no Lawrence Guy, Devon Godshaw, or Joe Cardona. So, variety of reasons for any of those guys to not be out there. We're not going to jump to conclusions. We will keep our peepers fixed on who's in and who's out from that group. The conversation that really has gripped New England's attention, unfortunately, is whether or not there'll be a competition at quarterback in 2023 between Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. Now, for me, I have said it before, I'll say it again. 2022 was a mulligan. I don't care what we saw. I don't care what anybody's attitude was. I don't care what anybody's statistics were. The Patriots peed down their leg with an overestimation of their own smarts in the offseason and said, we can do it. Matt, myself, Joe Judge, we're smart coaches. We can run an offense. Well, they couldn't. And as a result, everything that flowed off of that, from performances of the quarterbacks to performances of the receivers and tight ends, really even to the performances of the offensive line, gets an asterisk, gets a mulligan. We do it all over again. Despite that, people looked at the performance of Mac Jones in 2022 and said not only was he unproductive, he was a dink. And as such, he's got himself on notice. Now, I'm not denying that he didn't act like a dink. Thought he sucked it up pretty good for about 4 months. And then by the beginning of December, he said, enough. I'm going to start shooting back at the sidelines. He did. That didn't go over big. We saw the consternation throughout the end of the season and into the offseason for Bill Belichick. But I never once believed that Bill Belichick would try to go with a straight face to Robert Kraft or any of his coaching staff and say, he's not the guy, and point at Mac Jones. The reason? That'd be an indictment on Bill Belichick. Spend a first-round pick in 2021 on someone, have him be the runner-up for Offensive Rookie of the Year, talk about how great he was in the offseason prior to last year, and when he goes off like a cherry bomb in your hand, it's his fault, not yours, for the situation you put him in. So it was never going to be a case where Mac Jones was on the verge of the cusp of the threshold of being replaced. However, Bill being Bill, has dangled the notion of everybody has to reestablish their level. And because there was some ambiguity as to what level Mac established last year, there were plenty of people who surmised that his job might be in jeopardy. And we've also heard conversation emanating from the coaching staff of 2022 that, boy, it seemed to work real well when Bailey Zappi was under center. Maybe if Mac followed coaching better, he would have had a better season. We've theorized and hypothesized where that came from in the past. No sense doing it. I just don't think those coaches are on offense anymore for the Patriots. And now that Bill O'Brien, a legitimate offensive coach, is, Mac Jones is entrenched. And that's what we saw on Thursday, which is what I expected. First reps were Mac Jones with the ones. Bailey Zappi was in there with a mixture of guys from the ones and the twos. Trace McSorley was in with the threes. Malik Cunningham, the draftee from Louisville, you wondering about him? Worked out mostly with the wideouts on this Wednesday. I think I've said Thursday a couple times. On this Wednesday, post-practice, sometimes when players get some extra work in, younger players especially, he took some reps at quarterback. But right now, the upshot is Mac Jones is the entrenched starter, the incumbent, and he would have to pee down his own leg. Nobody else's, his own, in order to be dislodged from that position, as it should be. I'm not saying he's the second coming of Bart Starr, okay, or Bob Greasy, or any other skinny, game-managing, successful guy, but he could be. We'll get another crack to see the Patriots at practice next week, another OTA, another opportunity to talk to players, another opportunity to hear from them what their feelings are going into 2023. Now, at the beginning of this pod, I said, I might not get into some of the sound too much, but without the senator here and with my observations kind of at an end, why not rely on some of the sound that we did here and share that with you now? First things first, let's listen to Matt Slater when I asked him about a clean slate for 2023 and whether that was feasible.
Well, it does feel very clean, and certainly that's challenging, right? It's certainly challenging for guys that have been here to totally erase what's happened in the past. But I think you can use the past as a teacher, and hopefully you learn from mistakes, you learn from things that have happened to you over the course of your career, and you try to improve and build upon that. And I think as a team, certainly we're going to have to take on a new identity. There are new players. It's a new season, new challenge, and it is a clean slate. But there are things that we've done last year, the past several years, that we can learn from and hopefully grow from, and mistakes that we hope not to repeat and things like that.
I'm going to let it roll with Slater in just a minute, too, on his answer when asked about his feelings on the rules changes involving kickoffs. And it's a long one, and it's a must listen. So hold on. But before we get to that, we had other things on the agenda today that needed addressing, and that was the loss of the two OTAs last week by the Patriots, the penalty for Joe Judge having scheduled meetings 20 minutes ahead of practice times and extending players' days. Bill Belichick, well, he tiptoed around it a little bit, and jokingly, too.
Losing those two OTAs, how does that affect preparation, if at all, for this upcoming season?
Had a good long weekend.
Nice and relaxing. What, was it disappointing to lose those two OTAs?
Yeah, we're looking forward to getting out there today.
In the course of that conversation, we've come back to Joe Judge and said, okay, obviously his name is all over this NFLPA report as being the offending party. How does Bill feel about Joe Judge on his coaching staff? What value does he bring? Is he in Joe's corner? Here's Bill on Judge.
Joe's great. Smart guy, got a lot of experience. We'll do whatever we need him to do. And he can do a lot. So.
And in light of these answers about Joe Judge, I figured, hey, if we're going to say that Bill has to be pissed and he's indicating that he's not pissed when we get him at the mic, might as well get him on the record. So here I was asking Bill to just state it. You're not down on Joe, it seems. It's not Joe's fault. Bill?
Yeah, the whole situation's in the past. It's resolved and we moved on. So, like I said, it was 3 phase 2 meetings.
I'm just thinking that your words about Joe make it seem as if, you know what, it's not one person that someone should be.
Look, I'm responsible for it, so that's it.
Meanwhile, Matthew Slater was asked about the move that's on by the NFL to continue tweaking the kickoffs. And he makes a good point in the course of this, and you'll hear it. It's a move that doesn't target the upper class of the NFL, doesn't even really target necessarily the upper middle class. It targets the part of the roster that's made up of the guys who are hanging on, the guys who are either trying to carve a niche or have carved that niche and are hanging on to it with white fingernails. And Matthew Slater speaks about the fact that he's had a career because of special teams. And the effort to do away with that play and the NFL's contention that it's a health and safety issue. Well, Matt makes some outstanding points as to whether it really is a health and safety issue and the selective choosing by the NFL to show its empathy towards player health and safety when it really in the end doesn't affect the bottom line. I mean, honestly, think about it. You're not going to see advertisers walk away if the kickoff goes away. You're not going to cost yourself money as a product, as owners, as a league. But you can create more money if you start having games on days other than Saturday and Sunday and Monday night, which is what we see with Thursday night football, and at some point Tuesday night football, and at some point Wednesday night football. So that's a point that Matthew Slater makes. He makes it much more cogently than me. Here it is.
I'll say this. Obviously, when you ask me that, there's going to be a reaction that I have that is unique from most players in this league. So I do have a bias about this, right? So we'll get that out there. It's my understanding that the powers that be think that this is going to improve player safety and health. And, I'm just not convinced that our league is always going to do what's in the best interest of our players. I understand that we want to reduce head injuries and things of that nature, but we don't always act as if player health and safety is paramount. We can talk about the Thursday night games. That's an easy one. That's low-hanging fruit. But we can also talk about the issues that our players experience once they leave the game. Why is it that we have to fight for health care beyond 5 years out of the game? Why is it that when players go to file for benefits in terms of disability, they're having to jump through hoops nonstop? Why is it that we're continuing to fight the battle that we're fighting about grass versus turf? We all know data can be skewed and projected in any way you want to slice it up. Whether it's relative data, absolute data, that's a whole different conversation. But for me, I look at this game, it's been played for over 100 years. And it's clear to me that they're making an effort to eradicate this play. They say that they're making the play safer, but the reality is they haven't done a single thing to make the play safer. They haven't changed the rules. They haven't changed the techniques. There's still going to be collisions that occur if the ball is not fair caught. Now, I understand there's some things that are going to have to be sorted out with the rule, and we'll see how that plays itself out. But I'm a big purist when it comes to the game of football. And when you start tinkering with things that have been in place for over 100 years, and I've gone back and I've looked at the rule changes, and some of them have been good. I've been a part of, eradicating the two-man wedges and things like that. But in this case, I just don't believe that this is truly in the name of player health and safety. What I do believe is we want to portray ourselves a certain way to the public, to you guys, that says we care about the players. But I can give you a long list of examples, and I've been around this game for almost 40 years. I can give you a long list of examples where the league and the powers that be do not act in the best interest of the players. And why is it that so many of my dad's teammates are in bad shape and looking to the league to help them? If we really cared about player safety and health, let's look at it on a grand scale. Let's not take away a play that really doesn't impact the bottom line for the league, right? It doesn't impact that. We're not taking Patrick Mahomes off the field. We're not taking those guys off the field, right? And I get that. I understand that. And I know that people will look at this and say, what's the big deal? But I understand for a player like myself, I wouldn't have had a career most likely with this play. And I understand the players that have come before me, the Taskers, the Bates, the limousine Woodies. You have to look that one up. Who play with my dad? Guys like that, who were able to establish themselves in the kicking game and able to have careers in this league because of the kicking game. And in a lot of cases, the kicking game gave them a platform to reach beyond. But again, I go back to this. If we're really concerned with player safety and health, let's talk about some of the real issues that are going to impact player safety and health. Let's not talk about a play where over 99% of the time when the ball is kicked off is injury-free. Those are the facts. Those are the stats. I mean, you can go look them up yourself. So does that answer your question? How I feel about that? All right.
So there you go. We got a ton in there. We used most of the sound already. Maybe I'll throw some more in tomorrow, and we'll have one quick read and react with some of the Mac Jones sound, the Tyquan Thornton sound. David Andrews was good as well. So we'll get some of that together tomorrow for you. We'll package up another, I call it OTA leftovers pod for you. So keep your ears open for any of that sound that we're going to try and put a bow around to give you a taste of the Patriots offseason, this being the first chance we had to get them in person and talk to them. And then, of course, keep your ears open for the next Pats podcast. We will talk to you in the very near future. Goodbye.